Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another video on Legendary Aspects. Legendary Aspects are an interesting part of the game, and they enable certain builds, increase your damage, and do all sorts of other interesting things. Today's aspect that we're going to be going over is the Conceited aspect. The Conceited aspect is a all classes aspect, so it doesn't matter what class you're on, you can get access to this. And it does have some very interesting uses. The Conceited aspect is an offensive aspect. It is considered to be offensive, and it does go into most of the offensive slots. In fact, if I were to pull up the gambling tool on Diablo 4.live, we can look and see not only where you can get it, but also what slots it's good in. So for instance, let's go ahead and type in Conceited. And we have the Conceited aspect, and as you can see, it is gloves, offhand, one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons, rings, and amulets. Offhands includes things like focuses, I believe also shields. It does go onto the amulet slot, which means it can be increased by 50%, and it goes on to the two-handed slot, which means it can be increased by 100% in the actual two-handed weapon slot, which means it goes up to 50% at a maximum in the two-handed slot, which is a pretty large bonus just for simply having a barrier. So dealing at 25% times increased damage while you have an active barrier. Now, this is very simply represented as 1.25, which is really easy. So whenever you see something that says percent times, it's always multiplying it like this, which is 1.25 times. That's how that works. Now, how would you generate a barrier to take advantage of this? Well, there's tons of different ways to generate barriers. One of the easiest ways to generate barriers this season is actually utilizing temerity. If you have yourself a temerity pair of pants, I'm sorry, I've got temerity in here. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. There we go. So temerity gives you a barrier when you heal yourself beyond 100% life. So you can get a barrier every single time that you heal yourself past your full life. In fact, I have a character who literally is able to just generate barrier at will. That's my druid. He can literally just continually generate barrier utilizing the temerity pants with literally no end. As long as I want barrier, I can just simply generate barrier as long as I'm healing myself above my full HP. And to show you this, I can go over to the training room here. If you guys haven't seen the training room, it's pretty cool. And I can just simply generate barrier using the healing effect. Now, when you attack to heal yourself, obviously you have to maintain attacking, otherwise the barrier will eventually dissipate. So for instance, in this particular case, if I just go ahead and swing at the air, you'll notice that my barrier starts to generate, and I can maintain that barrier pretty much indefinitely. With temerity specifically, the barrier amount is capped at 72%, because that's what I have on mine, 72% of my maximum HP. And after not having attacked for a specific period of time, my barrier will eventually disappear. And this is just one of many ways that you can potentially create barriers. Earthen Bulwark also creates a barrier when the skill is used, which is a pretty nice one. Also on the Sorceress, there are a multitude of ways of creating barriers. Like, for instance, one of the easiest ways to create a barrier, if you haven't played around with this particular passive, is a passive on the Sorceress that allows you to generate barrier whenever you use a cooldown. So if you have an ability that has a cooldown, using that ability will generate you a small barrier for a specific period of time. And this means that you can generate barrier almost infinitely on the Sorceress by utilizing the protection passive. As you can see here, using a cooldown grants a 20% of your maximum life as a barrier for 3 seconds. And of course, if you put 3 points into it, you get 30% of your maximum life. So in this particular case, if I were to go over here and utilize, say, for instance, any of my cooldowns, doesn't really matter which one. Let's go ahead and pull on Flame Shield. Flame Shield will immediately generate me a barrier. Ice Armor will immediately generate me a barrier. And in addition, because Ice Armor already generates a barrier, it will generate me a second barrier. And utilizing this and many other ways to generate barrier types, you can maintain almost 100% or 100% uptime utilizing the barriers. And this is why the conceited aspect is so important, because it offers just an absolutely amazing additional bonus damage. And I don't have the conceited aspect on this character. I probably should, especially considering she's utilizing the protection passive to get her free barriers, as well as the ice armor, which also generates her a barrier. And in general, she's got just a lot of various ways to generate barriers. There's also the new unique item, if you guys haven't seen it, called Soul Brand. And Soul Brand also helps you generate barriers by turning your potions into barrier generators, and also increasing the damage reduction of all barriers by 20%, which if you throw that on, anytime you utilize a potion, it will give you a barrier instead of healing you, which is pretty darn cool. It's a very niche item, and it definitely would involve a character who is highly set up around barriers, but still a very nice piece of equipment. All in all, the conceited aspect is definitely one of those aspects that just is really useful in a lot of different builds. Whether you are a sorceress who's utilizing barriers on a constant basis, whether you're a druid using temerity, just generating massive amounts of barriers for yourself by healing yourself, or maybe you are a barbarian who's generating barriers in some very odd way. If you have permanent uptime of barriers or near permanent uptime of barriers, the conceited aspect just makes a lot of sense. My druid should be utilizing the conceited aspect. I don't even know if I am, but if he's not, I definitely need to work that into his build, because he does have like pretty much 100% uptime of his effects. Yes, he's using it on the amulet, and of course the reason why he's using it on the amulet is because he wants to increase it to 38%. I can't use it on my two-hander because I'm using Great Staff of the Crone, so I'm kind of limited there. But if I could, I would. But the amulet is the next best slot there for the 38% times multiplier increase. And since I can maintain barriers indefinitely on this character, it certainly makes a lot of sense. I think that's pretty much it for this particular item. I did go over the gambling already, so you know that the Barbarian, Necromancer, and Sorcerer are the best ones to gamble the item on. And obviously it is a gloves, offhand, one-handed weapon, two-handed weapon, a ring, an amulet. So it's a pretty decent little offensive aspect, which can be worked into a lot of builds. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about the conceited aspect. And as always, keep watching.